Welcome in to another edition of Dealing with the Devils on Talking Ball. We've got a big one today, JD. We're still coming off the high of Thanksgiving, I would say, but we got a big one on Tuesday with Florida.
Back to back. This is kind of fun. This is college basketball at its best. No cupcakes here. These are Arkansas, good team. It was a really good game up until we pulled away at the end. Good game. Lead went back and forth. Lots of runs. But here we are. We're coming up to Tuesday night's game, and it's another big game for Duke. So we're home. The Cameron Crazies will be there. It's going to be December, so holiday spirit. They're almost ready to go off the campus and celebrate. But the holidays. So I'm really looking forward to this. Another good game, and this is where you have an opportunity as a coach to say we just came off of a good game, a good win, but we're going into another really really good game against the Florida Gators, and so therefore, what are we going to do? How do we prepare? This is a very different opportunity for Shire, where it's back to back quality games.
Back to back, because don't forget that the following Saturday will be Michigan State on the road in what's going to be a very tough environment. And I think each one of these three games, the level of difficulty just ratchets up just a bit more each one. And so I think this Florida game is going to be even more difficult, even though Duke is at home, than the Arkansas game for the Blue Devils. And look, these are the reigning national champions, the Florida Gators. They brought back the entirety of the front court, which they had during their championship run. And additionally, this is the ACC SEC showdown, the challenge. And last year did not go well for the
No.
ACC in the challenge. 2 wins for the ACC compared to 14 for the SEC last year. So um, not just for Duke hoping to get this win, but also hoping for a better showing for the ACC, which had a rough week last week. And we'll save more of that for the Monday show. But, not a good week for NC State, not a good week for Virginia Tech lost a game, not a good week for North Carolina. So Louisville won their game, Duke won their game, but going to need some good wins from the ACC in this challenge to help the rest of the conference schedule have more opportunities for quad one and quad two wins for Duke.
Which those are really important to when you get to the seeding in March Madness. So this is a big game, and I'm going to come out on this game, but we'll get to it later. This is a game that I think Duke will win. But we have a lot to get through here as the pathway to winning. So
That's right. All right. So with that, I want to talk about Florida because, as we typically do, we'll start with the opponent. And I said it. I think this is the more difficult game than the Arkansas game, and I think this is the best team Duke has played all year. Certainly in the regular season, the Tennessee exhibition game, I could quibble with whether that's a better opponent than this Florida team, but I think it's a very similar level to the Tennessee team, and maybe slightly better because of the front court. And the front court, which is led by Thomas Ha. I always kind of butcher his last name. I apologize. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce
it's
the
it's either Hauk, even though
Hauk.
it's
Yeah, I've heard
GH.
Hauk.
Yep.
Yeah,
But the big guy.
he's an awesome player. Like I said it during the post game show of Arkansas. Like I really like watching him play. The only time I won't like watching him play is Tuesday night. But he can do a bit of everything. He can rebound, he can pass, he can shoot, he can defend. I think the thing he does the best, though, is his movement without the ball. He's really good at relocating for open shots and cutting to the rim to get layups and dunks. He's a really talented player. But then they start him with Alex Condon, who missed the last game. A little bit of friendly fire. He caught a right hand to the chin from Chinyelu, which if you get hit by Chinyelu, that's going to cause some damage. And he missed the last game. They said it was more precautionary, so I expect him to be back. Condon, a little bit similar to Hawk.
Jack, I'm going to call an early timeout. And you know why.
Go ahead.
It's time to, if you enjoy us, if you like us, we had an unbelievable Thanksgiving post game show with a huge number of people on the chat. And so please like us, please subscribe. All of that helps us to grow. But most of all, the more participation from you, we just had Jack and I didn't even know what to expect after Thanksgiving dinner. Was there going to be a small crowd? Or it was enormous, and it was fun, and people were having a great time. Not even the conversation with Jack and I, but they were actually commenting with each other about, no, you got this wrong, that wrong. But sorry to interrupt you. Timeout's over.
Okay, we're back. So I don't even know if you got to everything. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, drop your comments and your score predictions. We want to hear from you guys. This is a big game. So Condon, he can do a bit of everything like Thomas Hauck. The big difference between them is Hauck is a better shooter. And when Condon's shot is on, that's when he's gone for 25, 27-point performances. It's just not too often that the shot is really on for him. But that's a swing factor for him. And then Chinyelu is the third guy in their front court. He's averaging nearly 11 rebounds a game. He's a friend of former Blue Devil Kaman Malawach, and he's always been a really good rebounder, but he's taken it up a notch this year, and is just a major problem on both the offensive and defensive glass. He's almost averaging 4 offensive rebounds in 24 minutes a game. Now, the one thing that has been his bugaboo, part of the reason he only plays 24 minutes a game, he does foul quite a bit. He's almost at 4 fouls a game, which is the reason his minutes are a little bit limited, because he does foul quite a bit. But when he's on the court, he is impactful with especially his rebounding. He can score around the basket, and a little bit of passing from him, but mostly the rebounding, the ability to score around the rim, and then also the deterrent. He's listed at 6'10", 265. He does a really good job of walling up when he doesn't foul and just preventing the opposition from getting to the rim.
They're big. Their guard play it's not as impressive as last year. How could it be without the assassin? But Xavier Lee, which I know you're going to get to the guards in a minute, he had a breakout game in the last game. And I was watching a post-game interview with him, and he's just one of those guys that just enjoys playing basketball. He likes being on the court, and it's infectious when you can do that. So that's my quick observation. Big with lots of guards. This is going to be it's going to be a tough game for Duke.
Yeah, and you mentioned Xavier Lee coming off by far his best performance as a Gator in the win over Providence. He had 20 points. He hit 4 threes in that one. He also had 4 assists. All their guards had good games in that one. Boogie Fland had 4 threes. Urban Klavshar, who I think has been their best guard, most consistent guard this season. He comes off the bench. He had 3 threes as well. And then additionally, a guy who's had a more limited role for them, but is in his second year in the program, Isaiah Brown. I thought gave them good energy off the bench, able to get in transition, get a couple steals. I think, I mean, I'm not trying to tell Coach Golden what to do, but I think if they want to win the game, he should play more. I think he's a bigger guard. He's 6'4". The rest of their guards are 6'1", 6'2", and so I think he gives them a little bit more energy. But yeah, Xavier Lee's had a real struggle with his transition to Florida compared to what he was able to do at Princeton. Boogie Fland hasn't quite figured it out at the same level compared to what he was doing, certainly pre-injury at Arkansas last year. But I come into this game thinking that they're going to play at their best. I'm not expecting them to play where they have been. I'm thinking that they're going to play at what they've been capable of doing in the past. Is how I'm looking at this game for Florida. And so you look at those two guys who can pass and shoot. Klapschar gives them good minutes off the bench. And then in terms of rotation players, the last guy I want to mention is Micah Hanlockton, who's the biggest player on Florida at 7'2", 260, 270, something like that. Does a really good job of rebounding the ball and being a connecting type piece. So he doesn't necessarily rack up a lot of assists, but he'll do a good job of getting an offensive rebound, kicking it out, and then maybe getting the pass to assist, if you will. So they're deep, they're big, as we've talked about, and I think the guards may have turned a corner. Although when you compare their last two games, TCU, which gave Michigan some difficulties, is a top 15, top 20 defense. When you look at KenPom, Providence is outside the top 100. So a little bit different in terms of the level of defense. And we know this Duke team is a great defensive team. And so I don't think Florida's guards are going to get the same caliber of looks, especially because Duke's guards are big. And that's going to make things more difficult for the smaller Florida guards. So I think the battle is going to be, can Duke score inside? Both of these teams, statistically, like top 5 in terms of 2-point percentage against. They are just both really difficult to score on inside, and for obvious reasons. They're both big teams, and they emphasize guarding the paint.
So, to me, that there will be, before we really dissect Duke, there's two keys, and that is one, disrupting the flow of the guards and the ability for Duke's defense to get up on them, not give them, 2, 3 3-pointers in a row, letting them get into a rhythm. So disrupting the guard play. And then for our bigs who have a tendency to also commit fouls, though they were terrific at just up and down the line in the Arkansas game, our bigs to be able to get in a nice physical game without being in foul trouble. And those are the two obvious points for me. Disrupt the guard flow, not get in foul trouble, be able to, shoulder up to their bigs.
Yeah, foul trouble is a key. It's not a it's not quite like Tennessee where they, especially in the exhibition where we didn't have Malik Brown and it was our two bigs going up against 5 for Tennessee, but it is our 3 bigs, Gangba, Boozer, Brown versus 4 for Florida, Condon, Ha, Chinyalu, and Hanlockton. So the foul trouble will have a big impact in this game. So we got to stay out of foul trouble like we did a good job of, especially the bigs in the last game with Arkansas. And then, to me, rebounding. Rebounding is such a big factor. This Florida, it's interesting. They get a lot of credit for being like a rim protecting team, and they're decent at that. Don't get me wrong, but where they're excellent is as a rebounding team. They're number 1 in the country and the number 1 offensive rebounding team. So it's going to be a battle on the boards. It's going to be a 5-man effort. It can't just be Gangba and Boozer or Brown and Boozer or Brown and Gangba. It's everybody has got to get in. And I think it's been an emphasis from Shire throughout the season, and the guards and wings have done a good job of helping out on the glass. So I expect that to continue. But this is a different level of challenge going up against these Florida bigs.
Crazy stat from the end of the Duke Arkansas game. We got 10 of the 11 last rebounds of the game. And I sure think, hope, believe that Shire will emphasize getting to the boards as well, as a team. So, all right, we've got three things that we're looking for: disrupting the guards, staying out of foul trouble for the bigs, and everybody helping out on the boards.
Yeah,
So
because
that's what those are the expectations for the team as a
yes,
whole. If there are team goals, um, but let me know when you want to turn it over to the individual players, because I have a little notation for the 7-man rotation and for the 9-man rotation, and
sure,
it
sure.
will depend on a number of factors whether we see 7 or 9.
All right, a couple more team points here. Um, One is actually I'm going back to the rebounding. Chinyalu, it's gonna take several people because he's strong, and then I swear his arms, it's like his hands are at his knees. He's got to have like a 7'6" wingspan, so he is just out rebounding him in itself. But then hand locked in also averaged 7 rebounds. Hawes around 7, 8 rebounds, and so is Condon's around 8 rebounds as well. So it's going to take a collective effort against the bigs for Florida. Now, a couple of stats which I think are going to be important for this game. Number one, Florida turns the ball over a lot. And I mean a lot. They turn it over 14 and a half times a game. It was actually something that wasn't good for them last year, but wasn't at this extent. And it's been a problem for them. And Duke does force around 14 and a half turnovers a game. So those things kind of coincide. So I think if Duke can do a better job starting the game, because that tends to be when we turn the ball over a lot more than the rest of the game, we should win the turnover battle, and that could even out some of the rebounding that Florida may win out on. And then 3-point percentage is, I think, a big advantage for Duke compared to Florida. Florida is at 28% as a team, and that went up after their best 3-point shooting percentage game against Providence. Meanwhile, Duke is at 37%. So that's almost it's a 9% delta between the two teams, and that's a big advantage for Duke. Tempo, Florida plays at a much faster tempo, 24th compared to 203rd for Duke. So I think it's going to be more up and down, similar to the Arkansas game for the Blue Devils. I don't think that's necessarily a disadvantage for Duke, though. It just is something to be mindful of. And then this isn't a stat, but just more of a feeling for me, in that this is a bigger game for Florida than it is for Duke. Because of where Florida is at, they already have 2 losses. They could use a big non conference win. And Duke is coming into this one undefeated. So I not necessarily a huge margin there, but I do think I would give the slight who needs this one more to Florida and the Gators.
Um, let's go back to tempo for a minute, because I think that is actually a really good way of explaining what my issue has been about playing easy opponents and then going into a hard game. The tempo is so much faster. And so we were down early to Arkansas, looked bad, turnovers, didn't just not a good start. We were thinking it was a tryptophan hangover, or from whenever they ate, or they didn't eat yet. Who knows? But I really would love for us to get off to a good first segment and not dig ourselves out of the hole. Now, with the turnovers that are committed by Florida, that could certainly help us in that first segment, provided everybody is going to the boards and everybody is also playing team defense and communicating. So I think the score of the game will ultimately be played lower than we're used to. And we'll get to that prediction later, but um, I would like to see us be ready for an up tempo game as far as our defense is concerned. Look, rebounding is still ball goes up. It's not overly complicated. It's ball goes up. Everybody's got to find a man. It is easier for the defensive team. That's why offensive rebounds are so valued. It's easier for the defensive team to be able to say, I got this guy, I got that guy, and put themselves between the ball, man, and what was the offensive player turning into a rebounder at that point. It's up to us whether we execute on rebounding, and we have to against Florida.
I have to. Now, one thing I want to be clear about is Florida's the best rebounding team. Duke is right up there. Been a really great rebounding team this season. Just Florida, that's their strength, and they are enormous. So I think it's going to be a big test for the Blue Devils, see if they can maintain. They don't necessarily have to out rebound Florida. They just got to keep it even. And if it's even and the turnovers are, I mean, there's a drastic difference. It's like almost 5 turnover a game difference between the two teams. And if that stays the same and the rebounding advantage is equal, Duke will have more possessions. And Duke is a better 3-point shooting team. And so, although, how many times have we seen opposing guards come into Cameron who haven't been shooting great, and then all of a sudden they rattle off 4 3-pointers, in a half. I feel like we've seen that quite a bit. But on paper, that would be the formula. And Duke forces the opposition to shoot a lot of threes. Florida actually doesn't give up a ton of threes, so I think that's going to be interesting, and they do a good job defending the 3-point line. But I think Duke allowing threes kind of, if Florida shoots the way they have most of the year, would force Florida into Duke's defensive plan, which I think would favor the Blue Devils in this one. Now, individual players, I think, is where there's going to be a lot of really good matchups when you talk about Gangba versus Chinyalu down low. I think is going to be a war. And I think also, I know some people may not love the fact that our bigs and Shires emphasized, that he wants them to shoot threes. These type of games are part of the reason why. Because it forces the Florida bigs to come out of the paint and respect a Gangba or a Brown to a lesser extent from the 3-point line and leaves cutting lanes behind them where a guy like Sarr could get to the rim or Foster or Evans. And whereas if the bigs for Florida are able to just sit in the paint, it takes away all of that and will force Duke to shoot a lot of threes that maybe Duke doesn't want to.
Well, so let's start with our most important big, and that would be Cameron Boozer. He's coming off of a 35-point game with 9 rebounds. And basically put us on his back to win that game. I mean, there was no stopping him. How does he respond to that when there is a lot more clogging the middle? It won't be as easy to get to the rim. How does he adjust and how does he follow up a monster game? And so I'm definitely looking to see what he, how he does it. Could he pull himself out? Because I don't expect the scoring to be as high. Could he pull himself out and become a 6 assist, 7 assist passer and give up some of those points for well-timed passes to guys cutting? There's a lot of different ways he can affect the game, not least of which is hitting free throws. but that's my bugaboo, which is we 80% or more. We just have to do it. But so let's that's where it starts for me is Boozer. How does he follow up the performance that he gave us for Arkansas?
Yes. Yeah. I think Boozer rebounding is going to be a big key. And to your point, uh, the rest of the team's going to have to score more because I'm not expecting him. I think he's good. This is more like an 18 to 20 point game based off of the matchups than it is another 30-point performance for Boozer. But to your point, maybe this means he can rack up some more assists. And he's going to have to, it's going to be a big rebounding battle, and he's our best rebounder. So I think he's going to, that's the one area where I'd love to see him get 12 rebounds in this game. Because I think it's going to be that important for Duke. And when you look, I think, though, in this game, I'm looking for Isaiah Evans. I think
Agree.
he had an important spurt. The 9 points he scored were important because of when they were. Like him and Gangba in the Arkansas game didn't necessarily score a ton of points. I think they combined for 20, but when they scored was really important. And in this game, though, Evans has got to do both. He can't just score timely buckets. He's going to have to score, 18, 20 points in this one because I think that's where the openings will be against Florida behind the 3-point line. And he's our best 3-point shooter. So I think he's got to be aggressive, not just early, but throughout the game, looking for his shot. So I think he's going to, and if he's matched up with which what I think will be one of the smaller Florida guards, he'll be able to shoot over them. And so I think he's going to need to be aggressive early and often for Duke.
I wouldn't mind an Auburn esque first half from him in this game to sort of help push us over the top, but he's certainly got to be on from three. Now, given the other part of his game, two parts of his game, which he's added and we've seen, is guys coming up at him because they know he's a 3-point shooter, and then he slashes by him. But heading into the sequoias down there, I think he's also then shown us that he's really pretty good with his passing.
Yep.
And so he could slash to the basket, dish off to a Gangba or somebody else in the middle and get us 2 points that way. That's another way he create offense.
Or kick it out to a 3-point shooter like a Foster or even a Cam Boozer outside. Because I think that could be open as well against this Florida team. And speaking of Foster, I'm not expecting him to get 8 assists again. But if he can play the defense that he's done all year long and look for his opportunities to score the ball, I think this is an opportunity for him to have, a 12.5 assist game and just be really steady for Duke. And if he can do that while cleaning up a couple of the turnovers and just keep doing what he's been doing, it's I feel like for Duke right now, there's 4 guys who I feel pretty confident about what they're going to do. And Foster, I'm going to put in that 4 because I know what he's going to do on the defensive end of the court, and he's done a good job of running the offense offensively. Evans, Gangba, Cam Boozer, of course. Can Hemenia do what he didn't score a lot, but can he give us the energy and the defense that he did in the last game? I think would be really important in this game against Florida.
Um, let's let's stay with Foster.
Sure.
Was that a growth spurt? Because overall, even when Coach Shire came out with the post game interview, he brought 2 players with him, and he brought obviously Cam Boozer, who had just a monster game, but he brought Caleb Foster, and Caleb has to learn how to keep his head up during an interview, though. He was slouched. He barely even made eye contact. So I think that's a thing. But he's so not used to being the guy in the interview that. But I'd like to see: was this an aberration, or was this a continued upward curve and trajectory to his game. And he's doing it, he did it against a good Arkansas team. And now he has to do it against a very, a potentially very good Florida team as they continue to figure things out with this new lineup. So I definitely think we need that. And Humenya, yes, a couple of timely threes would be helpful, but if he did nothing more than create the chaos that he did on defense by going after everything, um, he was one of the first guys mentioned by Shire in the post-game interview. He got asked a question about his play. He said, I can't say enough good things. His points will come, but what he did. So when you think about it, if he plays that way with Malik Brown, there is a lot of undocumented statistics that come from the disruption that the two of them will cause on a court, especially when they're on together. And then the rest of the defense is solid around them. But the two of them can force defensive mistakes against a Florida team that is prone to turnovers.
I did. We didn't get to Malik Brown. This has Malik Brown 3 steal game written all over it, and that may be not enough. He is going to. Florida commits a lot of unforced turnovers early in the shot clock. Malik Brown is going to force them to commit more turnovers, and I think this is going to be a big Malik Brown game. And to your point on undocumented statistics, I think more commonly known as things that are not shown in the box score. Um, and I think Malik and Nick are prime examples of that. And they give us they don't. I think Nick, the scoring is going to come for him. I was looking at his shot map. He's hitting his threes from the corner. He's hitting his threes from above the break, which is not necessarily the case for a lot of guys on this Duke team. He's at 40% from three. He's at almost 70% on his twos. The one bugaboo with him, as it is with several guys on this team, has been his free throw shooting. But I think that will come as he plays more because he can shoot the ball. We've seen it. So I think if he can add a little bit, I think we're going to need a little bit more offense from Humenya, a little bit more offense from Evans, and can we get something more from Caden Boozer, from Dame Sar, and does Darren Harris play? Because he barely played. You can't really even fault him. Although I want to say one thing, which is I noticed when I rewatched the game, I know a lot of us were a bit confused why Darren Harris played as little as he did based off of I know he played less minutes in the Kansas-Texas games compared to the others, but he played 1 or 2 minutes in the Arkansas game. And the thing I noticed in his minutes was there were a couple of opportunities where he could have gotten rebounds, and on one he didn't go for the ball, and on a second he turned around and the ball was coming to his area and face guarded the Arkansas player, whereas if he went for the rebound he would have got it. And this is just my guess based off of Shire's emphasis. We even heard him when they went to the mic'd up moment in the huddle. The thing he was emphasizing was rebounding. And so my thought is that Harris had a couple of opportunities to get rebounds. He didn't. And so Shire pulled him. Now, is that necessarily fair? He was in there for 1 or 2 minutes. Maybe not. But I think it's Shire, unfortunately, using Darren Harris as the example and saying if you're not going to rebound, you're not going to play. And I think it's been a big emphasis. And this game in particular, if you're not going to rebound, Duke's going to have a tough time winning this game. So I think just reemphasizing rebounding is going to be really important.
Well, and for your observation that Darren Harris was face guarding and wasn't focused on rebound, I think it's a pretty easy fix because it's a question of showing him the tape and saying you've got to, when the ball goes up, you've got to turn around. Your hands have to find the guy you're guarding, and you got to put yourself between that guy and the basket. And so, but but you know, Darren is also such a good shooter that you know love to see him come up big with two threes in a stretch, which could give us one of those big lift runs. And the other thing is, will we see Gangba? What's the over and under on Gangba attempting two threes?
So you'd set the line at 1.5. Two threes. I mean, last game he did attempt two threes. With the way Florida defends, I think attempting would be the favorite. I'd put it at like minus 150, 60% of the time for those of us uninitiated on the betting odds. But going back to Harris, I'm with you. I think this could be Darren Harris's mini version of what Isaiah Evans did last year against Auburn. I think he's going to get more of a run in this game. I think so will Caden Boozer. And I think they'll both play better. And I'm with you. I think Darren Harris will knock down a pair of threes and give Duke a lift. I just think it's going to need to be a more collective effort. I forget the exact number, but it was like 32 of 38 or 32 of 39 points in the second half of the Arkansas game were scored by Foster and Cameron Boozer. And it's just not a sustainable recipe. I'm still on Thanksgiving there. I don't know what the right term would be there, but they're just going to need more from the rest of the team, and I think they'll get it.
Um, for for me, the first segment's going to tell me all I need to know. Um, if we fall in that hole again, I'm not certain. Depending how we did it, I'm not certain how we climb out of it, but I don't expect to because of your point earlier about tempo. So I don't expect to fall into a deep hole. If we're in that hole, we're down 2 points or 4 points or something. It's not going to be more than that. So, all right, score prediction.
I'm going Duke 75, Florida 72. I think it's going to be a really close game.
I definitely have the game in the 70s, but I think I'm going to go high. I have Duke winning, but I have them winning 78-75.
So slightly higher. Slightly higher. And lastly, for me, a guy we didn't touch on very much, Dame Sar. Could really use a Dame Sar, not breakout game, but just um, a more efficient offensive performance. He's really struggling with his above the break threes, and it's something I noted a few games ago, but the trend has only continued. From the corners, Dame Sar is 9 of 15 from 3. Really good. Above the break, he's 1 of 13. And look, this may not be the game to continue taking those shots, but that might be what's available against this Florida team. But I like the fact that if he's in the corner, he can take the three. And then one thing I wish he did a little bit better job of is cutting, because he is athletic. And when the lanes are there, which albeit may not be a ton of the time in this game against Florida, but when Gangba or Boozer has the ball and a Florida big is up guarding them around the 3-point line, I think those are the opportunities for Sar to try to slash. So I think we're going to need a little bit more from everybody in this game, and I think it's going to happen. But both of us 3-point game, so I think this is going to be a lot of fun to watch Tuesday night.
Look forward to it, and can't wait to see us up against another quality opponent, this time at home. So hopefully the sixth man, the Cameron Crazies, are into it as well. And I checked, there are seats still available through StubHub. Not
There's
many.
always seats on StubHub. Always seats. Somebody's trying to make a dollar. So we'll see you guys post game as always Tuesday night. I think the game tips off at 7:30 Eastern Time. So we should be live around 9:40 or so, assuming that the game ends in regulation. And have fun. See you guys then. Enjoy the game. Peace.